You're listening to the Real Deal Podcast, Episode 7 for the week of May 22nd through May 28th, 2016.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Man Attic for another edition of The Real Deal. I'm Kevin Polly.
And I'm Brian Hatcher.
And today we'll be taking a look at two new films as well as news from Hollywood. So, with that being said, let's get rolling. Now, first things first, you may notice these awesome things sitting in front of us. We do have new equipment thanks to Brian and his massive, ridiculous amount of overtime pay. We now have these awesome microphones, a new camera, and everything. So we probably look and sound a little bit better, which is awesome. So we're really excited about that, taking our game to the next level, you could say.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny, we're getting new tech, but we're going to talk about a film that goes kind of old tech.
Right.
Our first film out of the gates this weekend is the newest film from Shane Black. One of the films I guarantee will be in my top 10 list when this year is said and done, and that is The Nice Guys. Brian and we just saw this last night.
Right.
Good sized crowd there for a late show too. We saw like the 9:35. Mm-hmm. What a film, man! A film.
Certainly, if you saw the trailer, you certainly got what was advertised. When I saw the trailer, it's like, oh, we got Russell Crowe, we got 70s, we got Ryan Gosling, and then at the end it says, a film by Shane Black. I'm like, just take my money.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Shane Black continues his long, great tradition of the buddy cop kind of thing. We've seen it in Lethal Weapon and The Last Boy Scout, The Long Kiss Goodnight, and of course, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and now this. And man, I'm telling you, this is one of those movies that literally everything you think it's going to be, it's that and more.
Oh yes.
It also, I will say right out of the gates, and we're not going to spoil too much here,
right.
but it may have the single funniest sequence I will see in a film this year. It has a couple of the funniest sequences, but there is one in particular that may be the single funniest shot of anything I will see in this entire year. You can ask Brian. I nearly fell out of my chair. I was laughing so hard at it. As the rest of the audience was laughing as well, which is a good sign. So let's talk a little bit about this movie. This is a movie that really, for me, right out of the gates, as soon as the 1970s Warner Brothers logo comes up, automatically I had a smile on my face, just a humongous smile. And then when you start hearing the opening bass line of "Papa Was a Rolling Stone," you're just like, okay, let's just see where this film goes. And if you think about it, the opening of this film, very reminiscent of the opening of Lethal Weapon. Mm-hmm. With the model going off the taking a dive out of the apartment or the hotel room. Sorry, this has a very similar kind of opening. Whenever it's just kind of like, wow, that came out of nowhere, and boy, that escalated quickly.
Yeah.
And then boom, we're thrust into this awesome mystery. Now, one thing I will say about this film is Shane Black, of course, has co-writing credits on it, and it definitely feels like a Shane Black script. It really does. But what I love about the film is there's actually a genuine mystery to it. And you really are trying to figure out what's going on with these characters. And there are certain clues you think are going to go one way and then ends up going other ways. And you're solving it with them, which I think is really cool. It's a very smart script that never talks down to its audience. Did you kind of feel that way too?
Yeah, absolutely. It's in its roots, and its plot, it's kind of a silly premise.
Yeah.
But it's not like a really complex plot, but really. It's kind of like in Deadpool. You're more interested in seeing what the characters do than necessarily how the plot gets resolved.
Right.
I feel. And there's not to say that there's no plot to be had.
There's definitely a story there.
There's definitely a story there. It's a very simplistic story.
Yeah, it's your typical noir kind of detective story. You got a lady who shows up dead. You got to find out what happened.
Yeah.
You don't know how far up this goes with the levels of conspiracy and things like that. What's great about this too is it really has that wonderful 1977 setting, and boy, it uses it beautifully. From the cars to the clothes to the soundtrack, which is an amazing soundtrack, by the way.
Yeah.
To just the overall look and feel, the billboards in the background and stuff. There's so many cool things that they really layer the film with that you never are ever taken out of the setting.
Right.
You are completely engrossed in the fact that this is 1977 and this is when this is happening. The style of the film, really, it's got that Boogie Nights kind of vibe to it, and it's definitely got that Lethal Weapon kind of feel to it. That the two guys who are kind of at odds and they end up coming together and overcoming the odds and solving the case.
Oh yeah.
So let's kind of look at this. We start off with the murder. We see the death of. We don't know for sure what's really going on. The death of a porn star by the name of Misty Mountains, which is a fantastic 70s porn star name.
Yeah.
And we see her show up dead, and so We then come across our two main characters, Jackson Healy, who is sort of a muscle for hire.
Right.
And then you've got Ryan Gosling's character. I'm sorry, Jackson Healy's played by Russell Crowe. Ryan Gosling's character of Holland March is the typical slimy PI. Mm-hmm. This guy will take money for work he's really not even doing, and he has no trouble taking money from anybody for even a job he can already solve. The first scene we see with him, he's talking to a lady asking about looking for her husband, whose urn just happens to be sitting above her mantle. Right. He's already dead and cremated. And Ryan Gosling has no trouble taking the money and trying to solve the case for her. So both of these guys, not necessarily the best people. They definitely don't earn the title of nice guys, as you would think it would from the film, the film's name.
Well, it's certainly the title, to me, is very tongue-in-cheek, you know? They're the good guys.
Yeah, kinda. And in this world, they're the best we've got to offer. Yeah. So, because this movie goes very much into the 1970s porn scene, and again, it will be very reminiscent of Boogie Nights. If you love that film like we do, that's again high praise. But the dialogue in this very Shane Black. There's some really funny lines. With Ryan Gosling, though, you get the interesting thing of his character. He has a daughter. Mm-hmm. And he has she's like a young teenage daughter, like 13 or 14. Her name is Holly, and the actress who plays her, I'm looking at IMDb. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. Is Angourie Rice, I believe.
Yeah.
Now this is where the film goes into dangerous territory because it's an R-rated comedy. It's a cop drama, or not comedy, a buddy cop story, and it deals with porn and drugs and violence, and we're throwing in a teenage girl.
Right.
Now my first thought was, this could really go really bad. But it doesn't. No. Holly ends up being one of the smartest characters in the film, and I could make the argument she's probably the most endearing character and the best character of the film.
Well, the thing about it is, if you remember Inspector Gadget, who was the brains of the operation?
Yeah, it was always Penny, and she's very much the Penny to Ryan Gosling's.
She's definitely the Penny of the thing. And although Ryan Gosling, he has his moments.
Where, he does. Yes.
Where he's like, well, he is kind of a detective, isn't he?
Yeah, he has moments, and the same with Russell Crowe's character, who's kind of interested in the world of PI.
Right.
Especially when he goes to Ryan Gosling, who they end up meeting, unfortunately, through a mistaken identity kind of thing, or a mistaken case kind of thing. But he sees how nice his house is, and he's like, wait a minute, you make this being a PI? Like, maybe I should really think about getting into this gig,
Yeah.
And so the two end up coming together because they each have taken on a case that ends up merging together with the involvement of the murder of Misty Mountains and the potential involvement of a girl named Amelia, who was originally hired by Russell Crowe's character to beat up Ryan Gosling's character when she finds out he's snooping around about her. Ryan Gosling's character is hired to find out more about her because she may know what's going on with the whole Misty Mountains case. So it's a very, it's a simple story, but there's intricacies there. You kind of have to watch it closely. I'm not saying you can't walk out and get your popcorn or whatever, but it's definitely a movie that rewards you for paying attention and following the story.
And I will say there's some subtleties in the plot. I don't want to go into any spoilers, but some stuff that you really have to kind of think about the time period.
Yes.
I was 10 years old in 1977, and one thing about it is, and like I said, not going too much into the plot, but this was 1 year after 1976, the bicentennial. Everything was America at that point. America. I mean, it was
patriotism, man.
Patriotism was very much part of the zeitgeist, and it kind of carried into 77. You're kind of rolling into that, and patriotism, to a sense, kind of drives the plot.
It does somewhat, yes.
Yeah, and I mean that's sort of a subtlety that if you grew up in that time, you kind of got. But it's certainly, to me, that's part of what made a lot of what this movie, a lot of the movie kind of ring true, because it really did feel like 1977. It really did.
Yeah, they did a great job with that. And again, what's neat here is, of course, you're in Los Angeles, Hollywood, and you're seeing, of course, at that time we were seeing in the pop culture the rise of the porn film.
Right.
Where it became a little more okay to talk about that they existed and to go, to a movie theater and to see them, where they were starting to kind of make their own stars, like a Misty Mountains would have been. And of course, back then you had Marilyn Chambers and Linda Lovelace. So
and of course you also had in literature, you had Erica Jong and Fear of Flying, and and you had Masters and Johnson, and I mean, this was sort of like in the 60s, it made it okay to like sex, but in the 70s it made you okay to talk about it.
Right. And that definitely is an underlying current here because so much of it involves the adult industry.
Right.
There is a party sequence that's just magnificent from the beginning of it to the end of it, where they go to a party that this big porn mogul is hosting, and it's funny as all get out. I mean, there's some great humor there.
And very Studio 54.
Very Studio. I mean, you even have like they recreate Earth, Wind, and Fire. Which is amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, I love that song and I love that man. And again, there's just such a great vibe to it. And the thing is, the film is, we're talking about all these different, like political and pop cultural things, but the film at its heart is a genuinely funny movie. And the two main characters, while flawed people, are very real people, and they are good characters. You definitely get to see Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling have some real fun, and they're really chomping into these parts. They're very fun to watch together. They're even fun to watch apart.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, they're very funny, but they also have they both also have their flaws.
They have their baggage.
They definitely have their baggage. I mean, Ryan Gosling's character, he has a tattoo on his hand. It says, "You will never be happy."
Yeah.
So that he can look at that just to remind himself.
Constantly remind himself. Yeah.
That you will never be happy, and I mean that. Nobody ever talks about the tattoo.
Nope.
You see it a couple of times, and that's it. But that tells you just about everything you need to know about that character, and you learn more about it, about his character as it goes on. But I mean, it's just that little thing, that little kind of idiosyncrasy of him sitting there in a tub of water in his suit.
Yeah, man.
And looking at that tattoo, and it's like, at that moment you get such a grasp of that character with just such economy.
Yeah. It's an interesting character, and it's funny because you have him who's the raging alcoholic, and you have Russell Crowe's character who's very sober.
Yeah.
And you get the vibe every time you see Russell Crowe turn down a drink that there was a time in his past that he wouldn't have done that.
Right.
So the two really do work well. They're sort of opposites, but at the same time they're similar in a lot of ways. And that they both are flawed people, and they both will kind of do whatever it takes to get to the end of the situation.
Right.
But there's all kinds of people that pop up in this movie. I mean, you also get the awesome Keith David.
Oh yeah.
Who's always awesome in anything he's in. He's only billed as older guy, but you'll know him when you see him, and he looks amazing, he sounds amazing, and he is amazing. Lois Smith, who's one of those character actresses that I always love. I loved her as the founder of the pre-crime division in Minority Report.
Right.
And I love her as the aunt in Twister. And here again, she plays just these wonderful, like, eccentric little older lady characters. And she has these glasses that really do look like pop bottles for lenses, and she's fantastic. Whenever she's on screen, it's wonderful. Gil Gerard, Buck Rogers himself, even has a cameo in it. Kim Basinger. Basinger in this. Well, I hadn't seen her in anything for a long time. She looks great.
Yeah.
And she really is strong in this film. Like, every time she's on scene, which is not a whole bunch, but when she's in it, she's a very strong character. I was very impressed with her work in this.
Oh yeah, and I mean, of course, her what she does in the in the movie, is a lot of what drives the plot.
Yes, it is. There's also again, there's so many cool people in this movie, and there's so many just people that you've seen in stuff before, maybe you don't recognize, but boy, you once you get into it, you're like, man, there are so many people, and I'm just looking at this cast list, and there's really just some outstanding supporting cast members in this. But it's a movie that, at its heart, you've got the two main characters and the daughter. Now, Holly really is a major player in this film, and you don't ever expect that. I mean, you wouldn't know from the trailers and stuff that she is.
Right.
But Holly really ends up being the one who really saves their butts several times in this movie, as far as what she's able to figure out and what she's able to do.
And she gets a lot of her own moments too. Absolutely.
She really does.
She's a great actor. She really is.
I mean, I don't know what else she's done. I mean, had a chance to look, but this is a kid who's really got some chops.
Oh yeah.
And I look forward to seeing whatever she would do next, because she's a really strong. She's a real powerhouse in this movie, and the fact that she can hold her own against friggin' Academy Award winner Russell Crowe, and Ryan Gosling, that speaks volumes about her.
Well, this may be the year of the Australian actress. I believe she's Australian, and I think there are a lot. Warner Brothers, they apparently when you want a great actress, they go to Australia because they seem to pull a lot of them out of there.
Yeah, well, this girl is definitely, she really is a real revelation in this movie. But you've got just so many wonderful, wonderful people in this film, and it's a movie that when you're watching it, I mean, for me, I just had a smile on my face the entire time. Like the atmosphere of the film is so perfect, and everything just feels so right. The performances feel right. The dialogue feels right. The pacing is great. There's real rewards to following these characters and seeing what happens to them. The big finale, I mean, not only is it just great action, but my God, I was crying laughing at points in it. I mean, there's so many great moments in this film that my parents are always a good litmus test for films. They really are. Because sometimes they're okay with violence and language and stuff, and sometimes they're not. And so this morning I was dropping my son off to their house for the day, and they were like, "Oh, we went to the movies last night." And I had a feeling something we could see. And I said, "What'd you get to see?" They said, "The Nice Guys." I was like, "Oh my gosh, was it not hilarious?" And both my parents were like, "Oh my gosh, that film was hilarious. It was so funny." And I mean, we were just talking about various scenes in it. So it's like, I know now, like if my parents are okay with it, then I know it's one of those that I think really anybody can enjoy.
Right.
It definitely is rated R, and it definitely wears that with a badge of honor, and I have no complaints with that because it's fantastic. But they really just do so many great things in recreating that time period, and you just are always you're just immersed in the film. And I think that's what I liked about the film is it's a real experience. And even though it's not a big special effects production, I would definitely recommend seeing this in a theater because, well, A, comedies in general are always fun with a crowd, just like horror is.
Right.
But B, it's a very big-looking film. I mean, there's a lot going on. It's a big, broad-looking film.
Oh, yeah.
And it looks amazing. And they really put a lot of money and time and effort into creating it and not letting anything break the veneer of the 1977 setting that you see on screen. I mean, it's shot in the 2:35 ratio. I mean, it's fantastic. It just every frame of that film is chock full of wonderful detail.
Yeah, you could put that movie in a time machine.
Yeah.
And play it on a grindhouse screen in 1977, and nobody would have noticed.
Yeah, they're just like, hey, who are these two guys? This is a good movie. I mean, really, it feels like a product of its time.
Well, and the thing is, I mean, and for us who are film fans who follow Shane Black, I mean, this is definitely a Shane Black movie.
Yeah, and that's the highest praise you can give it because Shane Black has been one of those people that he's been behind the scenes for so long.
Yeah.
And he finally got his directorial debut with Iron Man 3, which, of course, I thought was great. I know it's a very divisive film because of the Mandarin, but if you just look at the overall film and the screenplay and everything for it, it's a really good Shane Black movie. This is no different. And what's great is, because every Shane Black film always has Christmas in it.
Right.
In some way, shape, or form. This one does not disappoint.
Yeah.
Not going to say anything more about it, but it does not disappoint.
Right.
Christmas is repped, and that's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
This is just really, it's one of those movies, though, that I will gladly revisit. I will gladly own it when it comes out. Mm-hmm. It is such a fun time at the movies. And not your typical summer Hollywood fare. Mm-hmm. But I think that's what's kind of refreshing about it. It's not based off of a comic book. It's not a reboot of something. It's not a remake. It's not based off of a TV show or a prior movie. It's its own thing. And it's fresh, and it's fun, and it's funky, and it's everything you want a movie to be. I mean, really, I'm not saying it's absolutely 100% perfect, but at the top of my head, I can't think of anything that I didn't like about it.
Yeah. Well, and to give Warner Brothers kudos, deserving kudos, I mean, one of their strengths as a studio is that they are a director's studio. I mean, they are the place where if you have a director with vision or a director's team with vision, I mean, that's the place to go. Now, that's burned them in the butt a bunch of times, but when it works, oh my God, does it work?
Yeah.
I mean, in this, I mean, absolutely works, And again, it's a movie that, I mean, we haven't seen a movie like this in the last few months. We're not going to see a movie like this in the next few months.
No.
It's its own thing. And like you say, very refreshing in the midst of basically this cluster of superhero movies that we're in the middle of right now, and not that I don't like them because I love them.
No, I love them too.
But we're getting something a little bit different. We're getting something else, and that's awesome.
Yeah, anytime you've got someone who's willing to take a chance on something a little bit fresh, I'm always happy to reward that.
Oh yeah.
And that's what's so great about this movie is really it's a breath of fresh air in the typical summer movie stable of films. You've got your action films and your superhero films and your animated films, which we'll get to one of those in just a minute.
Right.
But you've always got those typical things you think of for summer films. This feels like a movie that would have come out like in the fall.
Yeah.
But yet we got lucky and it came out in May.
Yeah.
And it's one I will genuinely see it again in the theater because it's such a cool movie. I mean, I think that's the best way to describe it. It's just a cool movie.
Yeah.
It really is. Everything about it is just freaking cool.
Yeah, and the thing about it is even though it may not be typical summer fare, I mean, at least in recent history, I mean, it certainly feels comfortable playing in in that time. I mean, there's certainly enough action, enough comedy. I mean, again, it's at its core, it's a Shane Black film.
Yeah.
And, that's now about the best compliment.
What really I can honestly say the best compliment I can give this movie is I wish that there were drive-in theaters still around.
Oh yes,
because this movie at the drive-in would be the most perfect thing ever. I mean, it's that kind of vibe. I adored this film, really truly, and the more I've had time to think about it, the more I like the film. I really can't wait to see it again. as much as I love big action films and comic book movies and all that stuff, these kinds of films are always those nice gems to find, in the mixture of everything else. And boy, this one is just one of those movies that I have no trouble recommending, and I have no trouble recommending seeing it in the theater. Even if you go to a matinee, still see it in the theater, because it's important to support films like this.
Right.
Because the studios will then see that, oh, well, it doesn't just have to be a gigantic budget science fiction or comic book movie to make money. It can be, you can make a good comedy that is adult themed, that is rated R, and it's still, can have an audience.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about this movie is, it's everything I wanted it to be and more. And every aspect of it works. Every performance works. Every frame of it just looks lifted from 1977. It's, there's only one nitpick I had, and it's one minor little nitpick, and it's just because I'm a Jaws fanatic that I can say this, but there's a billboard for Jaws 2.
Yeah, I saw
that. But the thing is, Jaws 2 didn't come out until 1978. That's the only thing I had a complaint with. I was hoping to see something for Star Wars, because when Star Wars came out in 77, I thought for sure there'd be a billboard for Star Wars. There is one for Smokey and the Bandit, which was the number 2 film of the year, and everybody thought it was going to be number 1, but then, of course, Star Wars became Star Wars and changed everything there. But, I mean, again, minor nitpick. And, it's
and maybe to forgive it a little bit, I mean, this is Los Angeles. They tend to advertise movies a little early.
But the thing is, the original preview stuff for Jaws 2 had the red, sunset water with the fin coming up, and the just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water tagline. Oh. Yes, I'm that geek. Yeah. So I had this discussion with a friend last night. I was like, nope, that you can't forgive it for that, because that's not what they would have done for the preview poster. That wasn't it at all. But yeah, it's the minorest of nitpicks, but still I love the fact that there's love for Jaws 2, because that movie's awesome, and it's finally hitting Blu-ray this summer.
I was going to recommend the movie, but after you said that, I'm going
to go with you. I can't believe you did. We're done.
Don't watch this movie.
No, it's terrible. How dare they? Don't listen to me being a friggin' nitpicking Jaws nerd. It's the minorest of nitpicks, but really, like I said, I honestly can't think of anything that I didn't like about this film. There's endangerment to children. There's endangerment to porn stars. There's endangerment to palm trees. There's so much awesome endangerment in this movie. It's great. It's really an adult film, but again, even with the presence of the teenage daughter, who really could have been the great misfire. She could have been the Jar Jar Binks of this film, and ends up being a total hero. She's so great in this movie. I cannot say enough good things about the core 3 people in this film. I just can't. They're all great, and they're exactly where they need to be. So I guess we can kind of wrap this up. I mean, Brian, your final thoughts on this movie, yay or nay, and also what are the things that really stood out to you as to why you feel the way you feel?
Well, I certainly a big yay, certainly worth seeing in the theater, but again, the caveat, and you'll hear me say this a bunch of times, comedies and horror movies work best in a theater full of people. If you watch it at home, you just kind of miss something. Yeah, this is definitely the kind of movie you want to see with other people. If you're fortunate enough to sit next to somebody like Kevin, in a comedy. I mean, Kevin is the 3D glasses of a comedy movie. It's absolutely. And yes, there was the one scene, and you'll know it when you see it. Kevin laughed, and then he continued to laugh. Then he got out of his seat and laughed, and then he leaned back and laughed. It went on for a little while.
I'm not lying.
But oh my God, it was
one of the single funniest visuals I've seen in my life. I mean, it is easily, seriously, one of the lifelong funniest scenes I have or ever will see in its execution.
And I'm going to say this, because going back, I didn't know that was going to happen, but I'd seen some trailers after seeing the movie, and I think there is one trailer that spoils that scene.
Oh, that's so criminal, because that's such... Don't watch any trailers.
No, don't watch. I was going to say, don't... If you haven't seen any of the trailers, don't...
Oh, God, yeah, go into this movie as spoil-free as you possibly can, because, my God, that sequence is my God, I mean, just thinking about it right now, I've almost got tears in my eyes.
And you know what? And the thing too is I never thought a carafe of coffee could be so funny.
Oh God, yeah. There's just so many moments in this movie. There's a finale, and I'll say nothing more about it than this. It takes place at a car show.
Yeah,
and it's really amazing. The whole set piece is stunning. I mean, it looks like clear-cut 1977 auto show. I mean, everything about it is note perfect.
It is Grindhouse meets the Keystone Cops.
Yeah. With a little bit of art house, because it is a very artistically well done film. I mean, it's very well done. But the thing is, let's just say that when you see a car show, there's always those the spinning displays. Ryan's laughing because let's just say there's a moment with one of those that is I mean, just one of the laugh out loud funniest things you'll see this year. My parents, that was for them the funniest thing in the movie. Like, they thought that was just like how, and it is. It's howling funny. You can ask, again, almost the same experience of falling out of my chair. I was laughing so hard. This is a movie that will absolutely leave you, like, breathless with laughter at points. There's a little kid on a bike that is, so help me God, like, if this film took place a few years before Boogie Nights, you could make the argument that Shane Black was writing in a young Dirk Diggler. That's all I'm saying. It's
yeah.
cry out. I mean, I was crying. I was laughing so hard.
Oh my God, yeah.
One of the funniest moments of the film, and I'll say no more, but again, it's great. So my final wrap up: go see this movie. Go see it in the theater. Take everybody you know to go see it who's of age. Let me throw that out there. Everybody you know who's at least 17 and older, and especially if you grew up in this time period, you have to see this movie. I mean, it will be a love letter for you to your childhood or to your time growing up in that. It's a wonderful love letter to the 70s. It's a wonderful love letter to that style of filmmaking. It's a great movie that it has a rawness to it when it comes to some of its violence and some of its dialogue, but it is never mean-spirited. And that's the trick with a film like this. It's real easy to make a mean-spirited film, and this is not at all. This is not at all a mean-spirited film. Even with its two characters being flawed people, it still wants them to succeed, and it still writes them in a way that you can completely enjoy and understand where those characters are coming from. So, again, from top to bottom, everybody involved with this film brings their A game, behind the scenes and in front of the camera. It's a movie that will definitely be talked about, I think, when it's all said and done, as one of my top 10 of the year. It's a movie that I think could even be a dark horse candidate for screenplay for the Academy Awards or for possibly the Golden Globes. It's a really sharp screenplay. It's a really, really sharp screenplay. The dialogue is what you go there for. I mean, especially in a Shane Black film, is what you think about. This definitely nails that. It's a fantastic Shane Black film, and I think that's the best we can say about that. So,
absolutely.
Again, hopefully you'll go see it, and hopefully it does well. Moving on to the next film. Now, of course, as a parent, I have to see a lot of these animated films. And sometimes you get like a Zootopia, which is still in my number 2 film of the year. I think the Nice Guys goes right behind it. The top 3 is Civil War, Zootopia, and Nice Guys right now. That could change a little bit, but those 3 films are so solid films, all 3 worth your time. But with Angry Birds, when the Angry Birds movie finally came out after so many years of dominating your smartphone, now it's dominating Cineplexes.
Right.
It came out, so of course my son, who's 10, he loves all things Angry Birds, and so he was giving me subtle hints throughout last week. Dad, Friday's when the Angry Birds movie comes out, and I get home from work on Friday. Hey, guess what, Dad? We still have time to go see the Angry Birds tonight. It's still yes, I get it. We're going to go see Angry Birds. So yeah, we went to go see Angry Birds, and we saw it in 3D. And so I'll have to talk a bit about that because it is a new film release. Now, if you are a lover of all things Angry Birds, then yeah, you'll probably love the hell out of this movie. It's it's exactly what you think it would be. It's birds and pigs steal their eggs, and then they use slingshots to go back and get them.
And minor spoiler: these birds might be a little angry.
A little bit.
They might be angry.
It's a movie that definitely has a fantastic voice cast. Jason Sudeikis is the voice of the red bird, who's the main bird. Here's the thing. It's a movie that, it's just a big commercial for Angry Birds. I mean, you really can't say more than that. It tries to have a story. Like, it tries to give you some characters to feel like a little bit of depth to them. And that's no disrespect to the voice actors. They do everything they can with the material, but it's a very, very thin script. It's not something like a Zootopia or a Jungle Book where there's a lot being said and it's a real meat and potatoes kind of thing. This is not meat and potatoes. This is cotton candy. This is cotton candy at its finest. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's a simple little movie, and it's not something like, it doesn't teach bad language or bad manners or anything. The birds are angry because their babies are stolen. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a reason to get angry, and no one's going to deny that. So you got Jason Sudeikis as Red. You've got Danny McBride as the Bombird, and Danny McBride actually does really good work in this. He might be my favorite next to Mighty Eagle, which I'll get to him in a second. Danny McBride is not Kenny Powers in this. He's not. He is much more reserved, and that makes his character kind of charming. He's actually a very cute character. Danny McBride might be my favorite. Of the birds, he's definitely my favorite in the film. You've got Josh Gad basically doing Olaf on speed as Chuck, the yellow bird. So he's fine. It's harmless. It's what it is. And then a bunch of you've got the pigs. You've got Bill Hader from Saturday Night Live. He's the voice of the King Pig, and he's fine. I mean, they're pigs, they're evil, and there you go. There's a lot. Oh God, there's so many bird and pig puns. And I know you're the notorious PUN over here, but even you would be like, "Oh, that's low-hanging fruit. You didn't have to go for that. That's not clever. That's low-hanging fruit."
Well, I'd like to think I would.
No, you would. I'm certain of that. You would. The animation, I'll say, the animation is gorgeous. They definitely put a lot of money into making this film. It looks absolutely stunning. It's very bright, very vibrant, lots of great textures, the feathers on the birds and stuff. We saw it in 3D. And it's not a film where it's like a bunch of crap coming at your face in 3D, which you would think it would be. Like I expected more of that, but there's really not a lot of that. But it's the 3D works as far as the depth goes because it is very vibrant and very bright, not dark at all. And so it really lends itself well to the 3D imagery. It is pretty. Boy, I cannot deny that. It's a pretty film. Definitely like Disney and Pixar quality CG. It's a very good looking movie. And it looks like the game. I mean, it really does. You definitely see all of that. What is funny is that they do have slingshots and they really do figure out how to use them, and they really do use them to launch themselves into the pig's castle that's made of wood and glass and rocks and stuff, and they literally play the game. I mean, like it's launch them and shoot them. And then some have superpowers and they can do different things, and that's kind of funny. But you've got Jason Sudeikis, you've got Danny McBride, you've got Josh Gad, then you've got the character of Mighty Eagle. And Mighty Eagle is like, I guess, like sort of like the legendary protector of the island, and he's voiced by Peter Dinklage, and he just rules this film with an iron fist. He's the protector of the island, and when they discover him, when they finally find him, they discover what a colossal disappointment he is, and he is hilarious, like truly hilarious. Like every line he has in that film is funny, and Peter Dinklage just absolutely nails is this guy insane, or is he just really, really big on himself? I'm not quite sure. He's a little messed up, and the animation for him is really funny. He's a very funny character. So yeah, there's really not a whole lot to say about this movie. It's exactly what you think it would be.
Yeah.
It's harmless, but if you still haven't seen The Jungle Book or Zootopia, there are two far superior films to take your kids to. I mean, the Angry Birds movie is going to make money. I think it's the #1 film this weekend, and that doesn't surprise me. It's been building for years, and there's Angry Birds everything right now. And it's definitely, most parents have already taken their kids to see Zootopia and The Jungle Book, and they've seen Captain America, so makes sense that Angry Birds would be #1 this weekend. I don't think it's a film that will have staying power. Like, I don't think it will have the legs of like a Zootopia. Right. I really don't. I'll be very surprised if it does. This is one of those movies that I could see being done in just a few weeks, and then it hits out for video or home video market by like, beginning of fall kind of thing.
Well, you said, well, of course you said your son was really excited to see the movie. What did he think?
Cameron liked it, but Cameron just wanted it to be a goofy, silly Angry Birds movie. And so on that level, he loved it. He laughed himself silly at certain points.
And I think, honestly, I think probably why maybe this movie didn't quite work is that sometimes I think when you make these animated films and you're making them for kids, sometimes you kind of forget who your audience is.
Right.
And you think, well, my audience is kids. And no, it's kids, and it's also the parents that have to bring the kids.
Yep.
And I think you'll agree with me, the best of these animated films, they work on two levels.
Yes, I agree.
There's something for the kids to enjoy, but there's also something for the adults. And it seems, from what you're telling me, is that this is it's a kid-friendly movie. Kids will love it. The adults sitting in there are basically sitting there with their kids. And
I'm not saying that there's not some things the adults will laugh at that the kids won't get. There are a few jokes in particular. Now, really, the Mighty Eagle character, I think most adults will find very funny.
Yeah.
And again, Peter Dinklage nails it. He's great.
Yeah.
But other than that, you're going to be like, this is pretty much what I expected it to be. So, I mean, if you love Angry Birds, then boy, this film will deliver on every level for you. Everything you want to see it do, it does. It is cute. It's very cute. The little baby birds are adorable, and the birds themselves are very cute and feathery and fluffy, and they look just like their video game counterparts. I mean, I will say this: it's probably the most faithful and successful video game to film adaptation that exists. Now, that's not the highest of praise that I can give it, but it's definitely. I thought it was better than Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah.
Which was just so formulaic that it just really didn't have anything to offer. This, again, pretty formulaic, but it at least has some jokes that the adults will find funny. Mm-hmm. There are worse ways you could spend an afternoon at the movie theater, I'll say that. But I think your kids will really dig it. My son has always a good litmus test. He's 10, and he loved it. He can't wait for the second one. Wants to see if he can find a way to audition to be a voice in the second one. Like, he's just loved it.
Yeah.
So on that level, mission accomplished. You know, your little fans of the game will just adore the film.
Yeah.
They'll absolutely love it. It's exactly what they want it to be. There are some funny moments for them, definitely. Again, the Mighty Eagle character is why most parents will not completely check out of the film. And the voice work's good. I mean, you'll recognize the voices, and there's some good ones in it. But yeah, there's not a whole lot much more to be said about it. It's what you think it would be.
Yeah.
I can't recommend it from the standpoint of if you're just an adult who likes animation. I don't think there's anything there for you. You can definitely wait till home video if you want to really see it. But if you have kids who really want to see it, I can tell you that I didn't think there was anything in it that was offensive. There were no jokes where I was like, ooh, I wish I didn't have to talk about that.
Yeah.
There's really nothing quite like that. It knows its audience and it knows it well. So on that level, it succeeds. But I would say, from a personal standpoint, do I have any intentions to go see it again? Not unless I absolutely have to. So, do I have any intentions of watching it again? Not unless I absolutely have to. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure Cam will let you know.
Yeah, he will. Yeah, I'm sure I'll own it, and I'm sure he'll watch it more. Yeah. But yeah, that's one of those where I'm like, hey, your buddies are coming over. You can go watch Angry Birds. Go right ahead.
There
watch all you want.
Well, maybe if this movie's successful, we might be able to see some movies like it. Perhaps we might finally get our Flappy Bird movie, which would be awesome.
Maybe I'll finally get Words on Tour. That'd be great.
Flappy Bird would be great because you'd have your opening credits, you'd have a bird flying, hit a wall, and die. And closing credits, and you're out.
Done. Just done.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. Like a Bambi meets Godzilla kind of thing.
Oh, exactly.
So for those of you who are parents watching, you can take your kids to this and feel safe, and you're not going to be like, oh, I don't have to explain that to Junior on the way home. But you're probably, it's not going to be too hard for you to check out. You're not going to be as engrossed in it like you were with Zootopia or The Jungle Book or something like that. It's not quite to that level. So we'll move on now to news from Hollywood. But yeah, overall, it's okay.
Well, today's going to be our superhero news day.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that this week.
There's been a ton of it. So that's going to be the massive amount of it. So let's start out with Marvel. So, and Marvel Studios has released a ton of new casting news on Thor Ragnarok.
Which, wow, every bit of that sounds phenomenal.
Yeah. So, Kate Blanchett has joined the cast as the villain Hela.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. Also, Jeff Goldblum will be playing the Grandmaster.
Okay, that right there is the thing that excites me the most about that film. Just because it's Jeff friggin' Goldblum.
Yeah. Basically, the Grandmaster is an ancient being and the brother of the Collector, played, of course, by Benicio del Toro in Guardian of the Galaxy. They will be joining Chris Hemsworth as Thor, Tom Hiddleston as Loki, Idris Elba as Heimdall, Sir Anthony Hopkins as Odin, Mark Ruffalo is the Hulk.
Which is awesome that he's going to be in there.
Carl Urban will be playing the Asgard warrior Scourge the Executioner.
Judge Dredd.
Exactly. And Tessa Thompson will be playing Valkyrie, so they'll be bringing her in.
Yeah, Valkyrie. Everything about this film just sounds awesome.
The thing about it is Thor... not saying that the Thor movies were bad.
I really enjoyed the first one.
Yeah.
The second one, I like elements of, but overall find it to be a weaker entry.
Well, the Thor movies were never like the high, the top tier movies, and they always, to me, they were sort of like, low watermark in Marvel is still pretty high.
Yeah.
But I never considered them like the best of the Marvel films.
I think there are elements in them that stand out. Like everything with Thor and Loki is always like total money. Like anytime Loki's on screen, it's always great. And really, he and Chris Hemsworth, Tom Hiddleston and Chris Hemsworth, play so beautifully off of each other that they really do have some very powerful, genuinely awesome moments in both films. Now, I will defend the first Thor as being one of my favorite films of the first wave. I really do think it's a great movie. Part of that was, of course, you had a Shakespearean director in Kenneth Branagh giving it that gravitas. And,
absolutely.
And even though it took place on Earth a lot, it still worked well because of the fish out of water thing and trying to kind of establish his humanity. And of course having him have to kind of learn what it means to be, humble and to work his way back up to earning the right to hold, Mjolnir. That film worked for me. It really did. It worked.
And it certainly worked for me too. I would say, again, Thor may not have been, critically considered, maybe the best of the Marvel movies, but it certainly looks like Marvel Studios is kind of mindful of that, and they said we need to really crank things up with and the thing too is that
and you're adding some real heavy hitters.
Absolutely. How many Oscar nominations have we got in this cast? A bunch of them. And the thing too is that, of course, this is going to be coming out after Doctor Strange, so in a sense, Doctor Strange works you kind of have permission at that point. You can start to kind of go a little more mystical.
Well, and I think what they're trying to do with this next Thor film is I don't think we're going to see anything on Earth, and I'm fine with that. That's really where the Dark World kind of falls a little bit, is that it kept going back to Earth, and I didn't need that. I mean, there's nothing against the characters there. I really like, Natalie Portman and Kat Dennings, and especially Stellan Skarsgård. He's great. I love him in it. But you don't need to be there. What's more fun and more unique is all the stuff in Asgard, because that's where the new stuff is. And why not, like they do kind of at the beginning of the Dark World, what would have been more interesting is to start showing the other realms.
Right.
Let's see them, because if we know the Infinity Gauntlet is coming, we know Thanos is coming, they're going to need all the help they can get. So that's what I hope this next film kind of, just forget about Earth. We know Earth. We're good on Earth. Let's start looking at the other realms.
I mean, certainly...
there are 8 other realms to check out.
Well, certainly conspicuous by her absence on this cast list is Natalie Portman.
Right, which I know she's, I guess, kind of checked out, and that's fine. I don't think it's any major loss. I think, to me, bringing in Valkyrie, there's a great love interest for Thor.
Yeah.
As she was in the comics. And I think that would be... Or you've also got Sif in there as well.
Right.
So you've got 2 potential love interests, one of them being a little more villainous, one of them not. But, you've got 2 great potential love interests for him that still work. If you want to have a love interest, that's fine. But what I like about this cast, though, is you're bringing in some very intense characters.
Right.
You're bringing in some heavy-hitter actors and actresses to play them, not stars, but real honest-to-God actors and actresses.
Right.
And that, to me, is where I've always been very excited about Marvel's casting, is they're not casting the flavors of the week.
Yeah.
They're casting people who have the chops and can get out there and do the parts they need to do.
And
that's what excites me.
Yeah, they're not concerned about stars; they just make them.
Right. That's basically where they're kind of at right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Also in Marvel news, it looks like Michael Keaton is back on it for talks for Spider-Man: Homecoming.
That excites me. And there's also been that whole rumor of potentially the Kingpin being a villain in that film. And my God, that excites the hell.
Yeah, that's highly, highly rumored. But that would be, as of right now, because of the situation between the films and the TV, you're starting to sort of get a little bit of a schism there. So crossovers from television and Netflix to the movies, or the other way, maybe not so much likely.
But I would
love to see Vincent D'Onofrio and Tom Holland, chew up the scenery
because there's been
together.
some great moments in the comics between Spidey and Kingpin. So, I mean, if you can throw that in there, that would be huge. Now, of course, the speculation is who is Michael Keaton playing, and a lot of people have said the Vulture. And I think that's interesting. I think that'd be a very fun role. But I'd love for them to just come out and just, let's just make him Norman Osborn.
I would
friggin' go nuts and let him be the
they said that that he was going to be playing a character we've never seen in a movie before, so that kind of takes Norman Osborn out of it. But again, they might be swerving us.
They could be.
I mean, Michael Keaton as Norman Osborn, I ship the heck out of that.
Yeah.
I absolutely do.
Well, I mean, Keaton in anything is going to be awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I have loved him ever since I first saw him in Night Shift, man. He's just one of those guys who's just constantly, he makes any film he's in better. Like, truly, he's just one of those actors that does that. And especially if you've seen Birdman, gosh, what a performance in Birdman. Well, to think of him bringing, his A-level to the Spider-Man universe with Tom Holland now so firmly planted in that role.
Oh, yeah.
That's just exciting as I'll get out.
And, and the thing, too, is that one of the rumors about the Vulture being in this is that his wings supposedly are going to be constructed from Chitauri technology.
Oh,
so it's going to be the incident of New York
is going to have more.
Is going to play into this, and you can do that now that Marvel Studios and Sony are playing nice.
Yes.
So you get that. You get that.
Sony was smart to do that. Plain and simple.
Oh, absolutely. So. So also, let's start to get into some DC Warner Brothers news, because there's a bunch of that too.
Boy, I love a bunch of stuff there. Yeah.
Well, Warner Brothers has created a dedicated division for their superhero movies, DC Films, which will be run by Chief Content Officer Jeff Johns and WB Executive Vice President John Berg. This is part of a plan by Warner Brothers to better organize what they call their genre streams movies. Jeffrey Johns is currently writing the Rebirth series for DC and has been instrumental in the continued success of DC's TV offerings,
which, man, their
such
TV
as Arrow,
so
The
good.
Flash, Supergirl.
The Flash is so friggin' great. Like, it's one of those things. I'm hoping now that maybe with this new direction, maybe now they'll try the idea of integrating their TV universe into their film universe.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
I know it seems like it should be a no-brainer because their TV universe is so friggin' great. Like, it's so great, and to not tap into that.
Yeah. Who was it? There was one of the Nerdist podcasts, and I'm trying to remember who it was that they were interviewing, and he's on The Flash. and I think he plays the doctor. I'm trying to remember what his name, the actor's name
Tom
is.
Cavanaugh?
Tom Cavanaugh.
Yeah.
They advertised, and he basically spent a good portion running Zack Snyder down about the fact they should have, the actor that plays the Flash in the TV, he said he should have, saying that he doesn't fit in that universe does not, it makes no sense.
Especially when he's only in it for 15 seconds practically.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the
He
most
said,
ignorant thing.
I mean, Kavanaugh, he was he made a point of saying, look, this is a great actor, and a director could have gotten any kind of performance out of that guy that he wanted because he's just that good.
Yeah.
Do I even want to go here? Okay, I'm going to go here with things like that coming out in the news now, and no real damage control involved with that. With the fact that Suicide Squad is getting a lot of positive buzz, and it's obviously does not look like the other DC movies that we've got.
No,
plus
it looks a little bit lighter.
It does look a little bit. I mean, and with everything else, and all the other news that we've talked about, I mean, are we looking at maybe the death of Zack Snyder's career as a director? I mean, is this the end of it for him?
It might be the end of his work with the DC universe, and I'm not going to be upset about that because he's not done anything in that universe so far that has excited me at all. In fact, just the opposite. Jeff Johns' involvement is, I think, a big step forward, though, because he is the guy who helped reinvent a lot of the DC characters in the early 2000s. He's the one that took the Flash and made his rogues gallery suddenly terrifyingly awesome.
Yeah.
He made Captain Cold, no pun intended, cool. I mean, he made him a great character. He turned the Weather Wizard into an awesome character. And they even translated over into the TV series great.
Yeah. Well, and the thing, too, keep in mind, they didn't exactly build him an office at Warner Brothers. I mean, he's been there for a while.
Right.
A lot of this has to do with perception. And that perception has been mostly, we know what Zack Snyder's like, and we're fixing that. And I mean, certainly his involvement in the DC universe is I mean, even in the movie he's directing now, how much he's actually directing, we're not sure. I'm not sure how much. I mean, they're of course not saying because they're certainly not trying to poison the well there, but how much instruction he's taking, from Warner Brothers and from from Ben Affleck and all of that. Now, the thing about it is, I mean, if you look at Zack Snyder's, his basically his past movies, he hasn't ever directed outside of Warner Brothers.
No.
And again, Warner Brothers is one of those. They are the
with the exception of Dawn of the Dead, that was Universal.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think everything he's done since then has been Warner.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But especially with all the backlash he's gotten over these films that they were success. I mean, this movie. I mean, the two DC movies that he made didn't lose money. They
didn't. But they didn't make the money that they thought they could make. And I think there's where the disappointment lies.
And other movies he's directed certainly have lost money for Warner Brothers. I mean, Sucker Punch
definitly did.
Cost him a load
of
money.
I think Legend of the Guardians didn't do well either.
Oh, no.
Of course, now he did well by them with 300.
Yeah.
Now Watchmen, I don't know that it necessarily lost money. I think it almost kind of came to the break even if you total all international, domestic, and home video type stuff, it probably kind of broke even. It may have still lost money.
Well, but the thing is, you've got all this negative press on Zack Snyder coming out right now that Warner Brothers doesn't really seem to be that. They don't seem to really be doing a lot of damage control.
They're not defending their boy. That's for sure.
They're not defending him. I mean, and the thing about it is that I don't see them bringing Zack Snyder in for another movie because I mean the project he wants to do next is The Fountainhead, Ayn Rand. I mean that's what he wants to do next, and it's like I don't see anybody bankrolling that film. And I mean, the taint on his career at this point is there's so much. I don't know. Maybe with some time, he might be able to come back. I
definitely think he needs to look outside of the superhero genre for a little while.
Yeah. Well, and that's another. I mean, that's another thing that's been leveled against him. Is they say, he's a good director. When he has a graphic novel, he can pull panels off of to compose shots off of.
Well, I think maybe part of it too. Maybe the genre. Yeah, he delivered a great film in 300, no question.
Yeah.
And it looks just like the graphic novel. But he also had Frank Miller on there as basically an AD.
Right.
And they made that thing come to life, and it looks great. It's note perfect as far as the book goes.
Right.
But I think still I can make the argument his strongest film is Dawn of the Dead. And that film, I mean, seriously, I will defend that film to the end of time. I think it's a great zombie film. It really was, no pun intended, it was a shot in the arm. That it was a dead kind of genre. It needed a shot in the arm to revive it, to get it going, and that's exactly what he did. Zombies have been kind of popular ever since. But it took that film to kind of relaunch the genre, let's be honest. There weren't many zombie films before it. Right. After it was a huge success, though, how many more did you see? Tons. You know, but and then they started making them faster zombies because, well, they did it in Dawn of the Dead. Then you had like World War Z, where the zombies are so damn fast they can run over top each other and stuff. Yeah, but I mean, like, the thing is, you've seen more zombie films because of Dawn of the Dead.
Oh yeah,
and you could say in a lot of ways we've seen more comic book films because of the success of 300, which came out of nowhere and was like, wow, you can take a comic book and make a beautiful, well-made film that was critically acclaimed, made a ton of box office money. So he's got chops. I think what it comes down to is, with those films, he was still a young director trying to prove himself. He was hungry. And he didn't just have everything given to him because, well, he had to earn it. And I think maybe it's sort of like what we've talked about before with Christopher Nolan, is that it would be nice to see him do something where he doesn't have a bunch of yes men on him.
Yeah.
That they say, look, here's your budget, here's your script, you've got to bring it in under budget and make sure the film's under 2 hours.
Yeah.
Can you do it? Because right now, I don't know that either one of them could.
Yeah.
But I think if Zack Snyder could go back and maybe, with the backlash he's kind of gotten over these films, maybe he will get hungry again. Maybe he can go and make another potent film. Maybe horror might be something for him to check back out again, because Dawn of the Dead was a solid horror film.
Yeah,
it's a really solid.
Yeah,
movie.
I mean, honestly, if he can get with a good writer like he did with James Gunn.
Yeah, which again, Dawn of the Dead, you had a great screenplay with James Gunn.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if he gets with a good writer, and he understands, if he can really understand what his strengths are as a director.
Yep.
And maybe work on some other things, and pick up some things, especially in story, because I've always said that story is where he's the weakest.
Oh, absolutely.
He does not understand the fundamentals of story, and it certainly shows in his directing, in the movies that he does, especially when he starts dipping into the script. I certainly would not wish, for his career to end. I think he does have a lot to offer. I think I hope that this turns into a growing experience for him. I hope that, whether Warner Brothers decides to take a chance on him again, which, to be honest, I don't see that happening.
I don't see it happening either.
But maybe another studio, where he's kind of got to, like you say, get hungry, and push himself a little bit, and not be so much concerned with preserving his vision, but putting out a film, that connects with audiences, and I think we can see better days for Zack Snyder, and I hope that we do.
I hope so too.
Okay. Also, Margot Robbie, Suicide Squad's Harley Quinn, has pitched a Harley Quinn spinoff to WB, which the studio seems excited to pursue. The film is reported to feature other female heroes in the DC universe. They're thinking about possibly the Birds of Prey. You may see
that would be cool.
Catwoman, Poison
Ivy, yeah.
Yes, which to me this is kind of positive news. I mean, for one, it seems like Warner Brothers is not ready to give up on their superhero movies yet.
Right, and the thing is, bringing in so many of the female characters is a really bold move.
Yeah,
because again, that's on Wonder Woman, which is great.
Yeah,
which is wrapped, I believe. That's already done. And now, of course, the potential for a Harley Quinn spinoff, bringing in those other great characters. I mean, the Birds of Prey would be amazing to see.
Oh yeah.
Just to see, Oracle and that would be just so cool. I would love to see that. Like, I would love to see, Poison Ivy in that universe.
Yeah, and I mean, that's certainly something we really haven't ever seen from Marvel, and it would be kind of difficult to pull off for them, a female, a female only. And
although Marvel talked about the Black Widow film, I guess, is now finally moving forward, which is
and of course they want to do Captain Marvel, but
which would be awesome. Yeah.
I mean, it would be interesting to see Warner Brothers kind of beat them to the punch finally.
Yeah, it'd be great to see them do that.
And these are great characters, and this would be one. What I really like about this is that, of course, Margot Robbie has made a crap load of money for Warner Brothers and are continuing to do so in the movie, Wolf of Wall Street and all of these things, and it makes my heart warm that there's somebody in Hollywood that has a little bit of push and can get things made that's not some guy.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful. Did you get a chance to see? She did like a little video that's a takeoff of American Psycho. Did you see this?
I have not.
she does the beginning thing from. I mean, it's almost word for word from.
Is it her as Harley Quinn doing it, or
no,
just her?
It's just her. She's basically, her.
She's doing the Patrick Bateman.
She's doing the Patrick Bateman thing. I mean, as Margot Robbie, but the name of the video is Australian Psycho.
Nice.
And it's wonderful, But again, to me, I think this is sort of one of these positive turns that Warner Brothers is making, is that you have these characters, you have these actors. They've kind of taken something out of Marvel's playbook where, they're going out and doing these little short things, and you're getting to know these, not just the characters, but you get to see the actors kind of play around and have a good time.
Yeah, I agree.
And which is, to me, I think that's a real positive. And but going back to Suicide Squad, there was a recent test screening, and the early reports have been pretty positive. There's been a lot of positive tweets about the movie. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily news, because every time a test screening of any film comes out,
you're going to have positive and negative.
I mean,
buzz.
Captain, the Fantastic Four movie, incredibly positive buzz, in tweets, right before it crashed and burned.
Right.
I'm hoping for the best for this film. I really am. I hope it works.
Yeah, to be honest, it's one of those, my expectations are so low for it that it would really have to bomb to be a bad film at this point. I mean,
yeah.
And I hate to say that, but it's true. I'm not really sold on the trailers. I don't care about the characters really at all. I honestly, as great of an actress as she is, I don't care for the take on Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
I don't. To me, Harley Quinn sounds like Arlene Sorkin, and
yeah.
I have a friend, Veronica, in my Ghostbusters team. She cosplays as Harley Quinn, and she sounds just like her, and she's perfect. Like, that to me is Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
Like that Arlene Sorkin sound, that red and black, cut down, not the over sexualized Harley Quinn. And I get it, she's supposed to be able to use her sexuality to beat men up, whatever. I don't care. Like, that character is so burned out for me right now.
Yeah.
And every time I see her, I'm just like, I have seen so many other cosplayers do that character better. Not only in looks, but in the attitude and the vibe. And all I see there is just, all right, she looks kind of like a tattooed, model who's pretending to be a bad guy. I'm not sold on it. I hate to say it, I'm really not.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I'm most leery about, is because I know she's going to be a strong selling point for the film. And it's a character that by this point in the game, I'm just kind of burned out with.
Yeah.
I've almost gotten there with Deadpool, but at least the film was so good that I was kind of able to kind of overcome it. And maybe that'll be the case, or maybe she'll do something more in the film than what I've seen in the trailers.
Well, with another actor in that role, I think I'd be about the same thing with you. But Margot Robbie, she's
got chops. Don't get me wrong.
She's definitely.
But every time I see the trailers, I'm like, I don't see Harley Quinn. I just see some model who is dressed up like Harley Quinn, like what she thinks she would look like. Like I said, I've seen so many cosplayers do it better.
Yeah.
That I'm just like, there's so many different ways to get it done.
And the thing about it is, she's in interviews, she's kind of said the same thing you've said. She didn't particularly like the costume either.
I'm sure she didn't.
So maybe with a little bit of success of this film and her having a little bit of push and doing her own film, maybe she can do a bit of a course correction on that character.
I wouldn't even mind if they made her look like the Arkham games version of Harley Quinn. That's a little bit more to her and a little bit closer to the original animated version.
She's definitely said the hot pants are ridiculous.
Yeah,
again,
I feel like that's done. We got to get the young guys in here so they'll hand over their money, and I'm like, I don't care. Like, give me a character I care about. Yeah. Harley Quinn on the TV series, on the animated series, was strong because she was a great, partner for the Joker.
Right.
And there was that sort of sadness to her character, that she was driven to the point of insanity by this man. And now she's kind of dependent on him. And she'll do things that even she knows in the back of her mind are wrong because of her misguided love for this person.
Right.
And I find that very interesting because there's a conflict there with her character. And especially if you've seen Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker, when you see what happened the last night that the Joker and Batman fought each other, there's a heartbreaking moment where she even says, yeah, we went too far, but I couldn't help it. And it's like, yeah, that's what he does to her. And I just, in the movie, in the trailer so far, I'm not seeing it. And I'm not really, there's so many people in this film that are good actors, but I just don't see anything in the trailers where I'm like, oh, yeah, they're going to knock it out of the park with this. Whereas with the Marvel films, I think what they've done well is they've got good actors playing the parts, and they're really dedicated to the parts, and they really get into those roles. And I'm not really seeing that yet in these Suicide Squad trailers. Now, maybe part of that's because you've got so many characters, you can only do so much in 2.5 minutes. The thing that I'm most interested in with that film, honestly, is Jared Leto's Joker. because I really want to see how he pulls it off. I'm not really crazy about the look of it,
Yeah.
but again, that's one of those things where if the performance is right, then I'm okay with it. And that could be the thing with Harley Quinn. If the performance ends up working better than I think it will, then I'll be okay with it. But right now, I'm not... Like I said, my expectations for the film are so low. Because the film, to me, just reeks of... Guardians of the Galaxy was a big hit with a bunch of bad guys teaming up to fight other worse guys. Let's jump on that. And I just feel like it's so forced right now that I'm not...
Yeah, well, I have to kind of give the... And it's kind of an offhand way of... I mean, it's kind of weird to say this, but I have... One of the reasons I kind of give points to the trailer is that you can tell that they're not giving the game away too much. You know, they're not in a situation where they're so worried about this movie that you're basically seeing the entire movie in the trailer.
No, I'll give you that. They're hiding it well.
So I have to kind of give them points for that, because that has not been...
I guess my thing is, it's a film that I never even cared if it existed.
Yeah.
And that's my problem. Like, I just don't care. I've never really cared about the Suicide Squad. It's a neat idea, but it's not really one of those things I've ever been dedicated to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and
there are so many other DC characters they could be bringing to the screen right now, and I think that's what frustrates me. It's like, with Marvel, they took their time and they established their main heavyweight characters before they brought out the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Before they brought Ant-Man and Doctor Strange. They wanted to establish that universe. And right now, we've only got Superman, who's dead, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and then these glimpses of the other ones, but we really don't have any like real meat and potatoes to those characters yet. They're just glimpses. We don't know how they're going to perform, how they're going to feel, how they're going to move, how they're really going to look. We don't have a clue.
Yeah.
And so to me, I guess I just wanted something. I wanted that universe to be a little more established before they went throwing in Suicide Squad, I guess.
Well, I mean they're gonna have to beat the heck out of these characters. I mean Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. I don't know what more you can do to establish those characters. They should. I mean, without doing a complete reboot. Mm-hmm. Right now it's just. Well.
And we know at least Batfleck's going to be in Suicide Squad, so that's awesome because
so you get that.
Cool.
You do get that. You get that tie-in, and they're going to be bringing more of him in. So if it's a good movie, it's going to help. I mean, it has a very unenviable job. Right
Yes,
now.
it does. Yes, it does. It's got to rewrite the ship.
Yeah.
For the DC film universe,
and
I don't know if it's strong enough to do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it is, boy, that's going to be
that's
impressive.
awesome. Yeah, good for
It's
them.
going to be very.
It's not
impressive.
that I don't want the film to succeed. I don't want it to sound like that at all, and I will totally go see it because that's just my job. It's what I do.
Yeah.
But I hope that I come out of it with the way I wanted Batman v Superman to leave me feeling, which was, wow, I wasn't expecting much, and man, it ended up being so much better than I thought it would be. If I come out of the theater feeling that way, then it's a score.
Yeah,
it's total.
Well,
score.
certainly we'll be talking about it here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we'll be definitely talking about it. No question there.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit of weekend box office. Number one movie is Angry Birds at $39 million. Captain America: Civil War, a close second with $33 million.
Yep.
It did join the $1 billion club this weekend
in 3 weeks.
In 3 weeks.
God.
So
that's just insane, man.
Yeah.
And I wasn't surprised to see that Angry Birds ended up taking it this weekend because, everybody's seen Captain America by this point. Mm-hmm. And most of us have seen it more than once. So it's like, yeah, you're ready to go see something else. And so it'd be one thing, like when it was Batman v Superman, I think the reason it was so shocking was because there was nothing else in April that should have beaten it.
Right.
And then suddenly The Boss does. A film that had like no real push. Angry Birds has been like building up for years, so I'm not surprised to see that happen. But $39 million, nothing to sneeze at. But that's a big weekend in film in general. If your top two films bring in, like $70 million, that's huge.
Yeah. This surprised me. Number 3 was Neighbors 2, the sequel.
Wow, that is surprising.
$21,790,000. The Nice Guys. At number 4 with $11,270,000. So I would have liked to have seen it maybe do a little bit better. Maybe word of mouth will.
I have not seen Neighbors 2 yet, but there's no way on earth that film is better than The Nice Guys. There's no way.
Yep. And then we get at number 5 we get The Jungle Book at $11 million. At number 6 we've got Money Monster at $7,800,000. We got The Darkness at number 7 with $2,363,000. Zootopia hanging strong at number 8 at $1,703,000.
Crazy talk.
And Huntsman's Winter's War at 9 at $1,190,000. And we end up at 10 with Mother's Day at $1,115,214.
Wow.
Followed by The Barbershop, The Meddler, The Boss, Love and Friendship, The Man Who Knew Infinity, Keanu, The Lobster, Sing Street, Bigger Splash, Fat Greek Wedding 2, Ratchet and Clank, Eye in the Sky, Divergent, Deadpool at 23. Hello, my name is Doris, 10 Cloverfield Lane, London Has Fallen, Wiener, Maggie's Plan, Hologram for the King, Compadres, Miles Above, Criminal. Guess what I'm not saying in any of this list?
Batman v Superman.
It's gone. Absolutely flat out gone at this point.
Man.
I don't even know if it's playing theaters at this point.
I think it still is like around here, but I obviously it's not doing much if that's the case.
Yeah, it's completely. I mean, even The Boss is hanging on in
that's
13.
amazing. Yeah, but I'm thrilled to see Zootopia still hanging in the top 10. That's awesome.
So, what do we got going for next week? Well, let's see. Alice Through the Looking Glass, starring Johnny Depp, Mia Walk. I'm sorry. Let me apologize. Let me apologize right now. Wasikowska.
Yeah,
I know I've butchered it. Please forgive me.
But it's also got Sacha Baron Cohen.
Helena Bonham Carter,
of course.
It's not a Tim Burton movie,
but he's producer on it.
But you got it because you be there. And then some. What else is something else? X something.
Oh
X-Men.
yeah.
Now here's the thing: X-Men Apocalypse has already started playing overseas. Made $100 million.
Wow.
Already, yeah.
Holy cats.
Which is going to be interesting to see how it does here, because it's certainly not getting the Rotten Tomatoes score that Batman v Superman got, but
it's certainly not Civil War score either.
Yeah, certainly not.
It's very middle ground.
It's very middle ground.
I've seen, and you and I were talking last night. It seems like it's a film that right now people have either just really liked it or they really haven't.
Yeah, there's no it was okay.
Yeah, it seems like it's polarizing.
It is. It seems to be very much so. And again, is this superhero burnout, or is it? There's no real way of telling until we've seen the film ourselves.
Right, and it's one of those things too. I expect the film will do well because all the X-Men films really have. I mean, even X-Men 3, which I thought was a terrible film, did ridiculous money. I mean, like it, and they have literally always like brought those out around that Memorial Day time, and it seems like they clean up house when they do that.
Yeah,
every X-Men film has basically been a hit. So that in and of itself is pretty amazing. And so the thing is with this, will it build upon the goodwill that was established by X-Men Days of Future Past, which was such a tremendous hit when it came out? Now, you can actually find our review for it from back in the day on The Real Deal. And I'll be honest, I liked the film, but I didn't love it. I really wanted to like it more than I did. So I got to wonder will I feel the same way about X-Men Apocalypse? The trailers I really dig. I love the fact that we're seeing the 80s versions of these characters. I love that we're getting Nightcrawler back. And I like that we're seeing Storm with the Mohawk. I like that we have a great actor in Oscar Isaac playing Apocalypse, and that we see him doing some really cool things in the trailers.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to play out. For me, Bryan Singer made two of the all-time great comic book films with X-Men 2, which I still think is just an amazing film, and X-Men First Class he produced. That was Matthew Vaughn. But X-Men and X-Men 2 are really two of the better comic book films out there. X-Men 2, I think, is a definite discussion for top 10. It's a really great film. So to me, I'll be interested to see if he can keep it going forward with the momentum he brought back with X-Men Days of Future Past. Obviously, they're really banking on the Jennifer Lawrence connection because she's been in a lot of the trailers without being in blue Mystique form. She's, Jennifer Lawrence. So I know they're really banking on her to continue to bring people in. And the Hunger Games films, of course, were a huge success. They'll try to piggyback off of that all they can.
Yeah.
It'll just be interesting to see how it plays out because they've already talked about a next film that will take place in the 90s.
Yeah. It's like they're
catching back up to the first film, basically, which is kind of funny. So, obviously, they have to feel pretty good about the film's chances if they're already looking at a fifth possible Bryan Singer directed X-Men film, or at least a new film in the franchise. So that will be a very telling tale next weekend. How will it perform? I expect it to be number one. The question will be how much does it make? That'll be a big question.
Yeah, that will definitely be it, and it'll be interesting to see how well it does in the theaters. I've been trying to avoid a lot of the critics' reviews.
As have I.
I haven't been trying.
The only one I watched was Chris Stuckman, and I really do like his reviews. I tend to really park my car in the same garage with him on most films, and he gave the film an A-.
Yeah.
And he said, it takes a little while to get going, but once it gets where it's going and you realize as a viewer where it's ultimately going, it ends up being a tremendous film. And so to me, I've always been willing to give Bryan Singer the benefit of the doubt. I always have been, even though I don't think Superman Returns is a perfect film. There are moments in it that are really good, and I still would watch that over Man of Steel. And I, of course, loved X-Men and X-Men 2. Really enjoyed Days of Future Past. Of course, I will always look to him as the guy who gave us The Usual Suspects, which is one of the most amazing films of the 1990s.
Yeah.
And a film people forget about, but I thought Apt Pupil was a really great Stephen King
it
story.
was a great movie.
Great casting. Ian McKellen is chilling in that role.
He is.
Singer's a guy who's got chops. There's no question of that.
Mm-hmm.
And, much like a Zack Snyder kind of thing, Singer did go off and make a few films like Jack the Giant Slayer and stuff that were just flops, didn't do well at all. But when he came back to the X-Men franchise, he kind of righted himself and righted the ship and made the X-Men film, the X-Men universe better by kind of basically erasing X-Men 3 and X-Men Wolverine Origins. So we needed to get those both gone, and now they're gone.
Yeah.
So now we have a timeline with characters that we like, Cyclops and Jean Grey and Nightcrawler, and we're going to see, Angel and Storm and Magneto coming back. So we've got some great characters in there, and the return of Quicksilver, which we'll all admit, regardless of what you thought of X-Men Days of Future Past, the Quicksilver sequence is total money. Straight up total money.
Yeah, and we're supposed to get more of the same.
Yeah, so I'm totally excited to see what Evan Peters will do in that, because he's just a great actor and really awesome as Quicksilver. So we'll definitely be checking it out. That's definitely one you'll see from us next week. Mm-hmm. A couple of trailers popped up this week too. We got to see the official second trailer for the new Ghostbusters film,
right?
Which I actually found to be a lot more enjoyable than the first trailer was, and to me felt like if this trailer would have been the first trailer that came out, that people would probably feel a little bit better about the film. It's not going to change the haters. There are haters out there who are just going to hate this film no matter what. But I do think the overall feel from the public would be a lot stronger if this would have been the first trailer, not the first trailer that came out. What did you think of it?
Well, there seems to be a plot twist in this movie that's being given away by the trailer.
Yeah,
which I kind of wish they hadn't done it. I would have rather have seen that in the theater, than to see it in a trailer. But at the same time, I mean, with all the backlash that this first trailer got, I think they're running a little bit scared, and which I wish they didn't. But at the same time, Chris Hemsworth is the star.
He's a very bankable star.
He's a very bankable star, although honestly in this movie, he's supposed to be in the background. Now, obviously, this trailer has shown that's not exactly the case, and they're wanting to kind of show, hey, you're going to get to see a lot more of Chris.
Yeah, we love Thor, and he's here.
And I'm like...
I will say, though, he is the thing that I've laughed at the hardest in every trailer.
Yeah.
He's genuinely funny, because he plays that the lights are on but nobody's home thing really well. He's really good at playing the I'm really good looking but I'm stupid as hell. And I think I've said I think he and Kate McKinnon will steal this film. I really truly do. As you know, I am a Ghostbuster, and and so I hear it from both sides. You're a sellout if you think this movie's going to be great, or you're just doing it because you think that it you're better than everybody else by saying, I'm going to give it a shot because I don't care if it's all girls or whatever. Mm-hmm. I like I've said before, I've read the story synopsis. I've read it by the guy who was on Reddit and who worked on the visual effects, and I got to think it was a correct thing because every trailer I've seen shows everything he talked about. And again, as I said, I didn't care for the story at all. I really didn't. It's very by the numbers and almost feels like a remake in a lot of ways of the original film. What I've said, though, is that I'll give it a shot because you've got a solid director in Paul Feig. He's made some good comedies. I mean, Bridesmaids is a damn funny film. It really is a damn funny movie. You've got strong female actresses. You've got Chris Hemsworth. So you've got people I like. I will say, having a chance to see the trailer in 3D in front of Angry Birds, the 3D in it looks really strong. The ghosts look really neat in 3D because they're very high contrast, they're very vibrant. It's
exactly
how they did that.
So it makes it a lot easier.
And it's funny because a lot of people are like, look at all the CG, but actually I was reading up on it. Those are pretty much, in most cases, like the library ghosts and stuff, are all people in costume. They were LED lit on set to give them that glow in camera. Yeah. But of course you take it and you fix it up with CG. I get that, but there's a lot of real people dressed up as ghosts in that. Which is a lot of how they did the first films. So it's kind of like, I feel like so many people are hating on this just to hate on it.
Yeah.
And I'm not one of those people. Am I thrilled about the film? Not thrilled about the story, no. Do I feel like that the cast and crew can elevate the material? Yeah, I feel like they can. But more importantly, I'm just excited that there's more Ghostbuster stuff coming out. And as a Ghostbuster, we have had so many more invites to events this year because of that new film coming out. And that means we're able to raise that much more funds for our toy drive and for the American Heart Association. So I'm not really complaining. I'm kind of digging it. And also, they're re-releasing the original Ghostbusters, the '84 film, in theaters before the new one comes out. So that's awesome too. So Sony and Columbia Pictures are trying to really, I think, find a way to scramble and get people to support this film. Now, I'm with you. Maybe they kind of went a little bit too much in this new trailer, but I think at this point they're just scared. They really are afraid the film is not going to work. And I've said before, this week they got another kick in the groin, you could say, when the angry video game nerd James Rolfe came out and said, "This is my review. I'm not reviewing it."
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, but if you're going to call yourself a film critic, you can't do that. You can't say I'm not going to review a film because I'm not going to like it. You're not a film critic at that point. You're being a fanboy.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Everybody's a fanboy about something. I'm a fanboy. I'm obviously a Ghostbusters fanboy. I dress up as one.
Yeah.
I do events as one. I got soaked in the rain in a parade yesterday doing it.
Yeah.
But I'm also, as a film critic, and I'm in my own mind a film critic, I'm also going to go see it because you can't judge a film if you don't watch it.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't want to see it, that's fine. But if you're going to sit there and call yourself a film critic, you can't do that.
Yeah, believe me. I mean, I knew The Darkness was going to be terrible.
Yeah, I wasn't looking forward to Angry Birds, but I'm talking about it.
So you kind of have to do. I mean, if you're going to take that mantle, you definitely have to.
You got to take a bullet for the team sometimes.
Yeah, and certainly if that's going to be his last word about it, and he says, "I don't want to. I'm not going to watch it." Okay, well that's fine.
But it makes it hard for me to take you serious as a film critic.
Yeah.
If you're going to pre-critique a film and not even give it a chance.
Yeah.
That's not being a film critic at all.
Yeah. Well, he's certainly taken a lot of backlash over it.
Well, he's had a lot of supporters too. What's bothered me the most about the haters on this film, the ones who just are straight up trolling it, is just the misogynistic tone that they're taking. That's just absolutely uncalled for.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, they're a female team. Okay. And what's wrong with that? How many films do you see with females leading it anymore around? Not many at all.
Yeah.
So I have no issue if little girls in America have their own Ghostbusters team that they can look up to.
Yeah.
Why be a dick about that?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, seriously. Right. Why be a jerk about that when there are a bunch of little girls? Yeah, there are little girls who like the original four guys. But wouldn't it be great if they had their own girls to cheer on too? I have no issue with that.
Yeah. And neither do I.
To be honest, my issue with the film is that it's not connected to the original two.
Yeah.
That it's a complete reboot of the universe. That is the issue I have with it. And that's where really most of the diehard Ghostbusters fans who aren't excited about the film, that's where we're all coming from. If you'd have just said it's in the same universe, just set it in a different city. Put them in Chicago or Los Angeles, because they even talk about in the first film that the franchise rights alone are going to make us millions. Well, there would be other teams that would pick that up. And there are other cities that will have ghosts besides New York.
Yeah.
So you could have easily sat this in Chicago or Los Angeles and have them be another branch.
And because it's a different city, you get it sort of a different take.
Yeah.
Because Chicago is nothing like New York.
No, it'd be an awesome city to set something like that in.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, with the L trains and everything and stuff, you just got a different look, a different vibe. You've got that gangster history there. You could easily throw in like an Al Capone kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's so many cool things you could have tapped into there. And then, of course, Los Angeles, a whole different venue. I mean, just a completely different looking thing to it.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you could have expanded the universe. And I think that's where my issue comes from. But I thought the second trailer was a better trailer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it definitely has more of a feel of what a Ghostbusters film should feel like. There weren't as many of the blatantly obvious, we're trying to make you laugh lines. There were some subtle moments that made me laugh, like genuinely laugh.
Yeah.
The other trailer that, of course, that dropped this week that we were interested in was the new trailer for Star Trek Beyond.
Yeah.
Which took out the Beastie Boys. I love me some Beastie Boys, but took out the Beastie Boys and made a much more Star Trek-y trailer. Yeah. Now, I think it's a much better trailer than the ones that they'd originally launched, and it makes me a little more excited to see this film. I mean, I would see it anyway just because I'm a geek for those kinds of films, but and now I loved the 2009 reboot, which I thought was cool because they said, hey, you know what? We're doing this splinter to the timeline. Okay, so the timeline that you know and love still exists, but this event happens back here now that offshoots it and makes a new timeline.
Yeah.
What I like about that is we get to explore the universe again with these characters, but now we can take some different twists. But then, of course, you made Star Trek Into Darkness and said, our second movie is going to be a remake of the second movie.
Yeah.
And that was such a catastrophic failure. I hated that film. Hated that film. And I loved that cast.
Yeah.
But that cast couldn't overcome a terrible, terrible screenplay that's so cheap and so pandering to the audience.
Yeah.
That I hated that film. Almost to the level I hated Man of Steel. It's that, and I've never watched it since. I hated that film that much.
Yeah, and I mean, it's certainly, there's a lot of emotional moments or attempted emotional moments that just do not pay off at all
No.
because they're not earned. They're absolutely not earned.
They're absolutely not earned, and that was the issue I had with it.
And J.J. Abrams, the biggest problem was, of course, people were saying, "Oh, that's Khan," and he's like, "No, that's not Khan."
No, it's not Khan.
Well,
It's
the
not
thing
at
is, one thing I know about J.J. Abrams growing up, he has a background in magic. He used to go to Tannen's magic shop. He has a love for magic. In fact, he's got his own deck of playing cards that are magicians playing cards. He very much into magic, but unfortunately he did what a lot of magicians do when they get caught out: deny, which isn't going to work in this situation. You can't just say, "Oh no, that's not Khan," and then when it is Khan, they go, I didn't see that come." No, they did see it. You just lied to them.
Saw it a mile away.
But yeah, I mean, there was a lot. And the thing about it was, there was a moment at the end, and we won't sit here and rehash a review of Star Trek Into Darkness. But I mean, there was that moment where they take a little bit of a twist, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Okay, they're adding something to Khan that's going to make this version of him different, and then say, nope, forget it. We're just going to throw that away.
He's still going to be a mustache-twirling bad guy, and then boom.
I was like, oh, no.
Benedict Cumberbatch deserved better than that. He should have been just another villain in that universe, not Khan.
Yeah.
But
he could have been.
He could have been anything. I mean, he's just awesome. Thank God he's going to be Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
But yeah, this new film, though, it feels much more Star Trek-y.
Yeah.
And less like trying to be Star Wars.
Yeah.
It definitely has more of a Star Trek vibe. The new trailer in particular gives it more of that vibe, that it's not just about tons and tons and tons of action, that it's about the characters that we know and love too. And it looks like, from what I can see in the trailer, we're starting to see a little more of the Kirk, Spock, McCoy relationship, which has always been the core of that original crew.
Which we haven't really gotten to see in the
No,
movies.
and I'm really hoping that we finally see that established here, because, man, Chris Pine does a really good Kirk. He really does. He had the tough job of not doing a Shatner.
Yeah.
And he didn't, but he still has that swagger and that brashness that Kirk always had. And I think he's done a really good job with that. Zachary Quinto, of course, looks and sounds a lot like Spock, and he really does. And, the problem is, I think, that they've tried to give him more emotion than he should have. I still don't like the relationship with him and Uhura, but whatever. But he's still really good in the part. He does Spock well. But Carl Urban has been the MVP of those two films.
Yeah.
His Bones is straight money, and Bones is why he's my favorite character.
Yeah.
And he does such a wonderful love letter to DeForest Kelley without it just being a caricature of DeForest Kelley, which would have been so easy to do. But when I see Carl Urban on screen, I see that's Bones. That's McCoy, man. And I really love his work, and I'm hoping that they kind of learn their lesson from the second film and really give him more screen time.
Yeah.
Because he is by far my favorite thing about those two films.
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny because, especially when you saw the trailer for this film, for this third film, there's this thread going along of, Jim Kirk having to live up to his father. Living up to his father was a great Starfleet captain, etc. And it's almost sort of a play, to me, it's sort of a metaphor, is that Chris Pine is having to live up to William Shatner.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, and it's kind of this, it's sort of a parallel.
Yeah, there's definitely a parallel there.
There's definitely a parallel. And it's going to be, again, it's going to be kind of interesting to see how the movie develops, because, of course, now we've got the new Star Trek TV show coming out.
Which I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting to me is that apparently it's going to, from what they're saying, is it's not going to focus necessarily on one ship.
Yeah, I think I've heard each season will have a different crew, and it'll all still be in the same universe, but each season you get kind of a new story, which I think will be fantastic.
Yeah.
And I did see where they finally dropped the lawsuit against Star Trek Axanar, the fan film that they were actually suing at one point. And J.J. Abrams and Justin Lin were like, "No, you need to not do that, because
you don't understand. This is our audience.
This is your audience. These are who's keeping the franchise alive. Don't you dare do that."
Yeah.
And apparently it's going to be officially announced in July that the lawsuit's been dropped. But they came out this week and said, "Hey guys, it's dropped."
Yeah.
J.J. Abrams and Justin Lin both came out and said, "Hey guys, just we got that diffused, because that needs to not happen."
Well, And the thing about it is they weren't hurting anybody.
No!
They really weren't.
They were keeping the spirit of that franchise alive, man. Yeah. And in a lot of ways, from what I've seen of it, it's far more Star Trek than the two J.J. Abrams Star Trek films are.
Yeah.
And the fact that Abrams really, he didn't have to do that. He's busy in Star Wars land right now. He still came back and made sure that got resolved. And the question, of course, now is you got Justin Lin directing this, and of course his big thing is the Fast and the Furious. So it's like, okay, so how does he work in a science fiction, universe where you're not trying to action it up all the time,
Yeah.
Granted, there's going to be action in it because it's the way things are in this day and age. We're never going to get like a Star Trek the Motion Picture ever again. And that's okay. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But, and I'm hoping that the TV series can give us more of that. But at least with this feels more, the second trailer made it feel more like it's not just going to be explosions every 5 seconds, that there is going to be character development. I do like that we're seeing new alien races, that we're not relying on the same ones that we've seen before. We're not really on Earth anymore. We're now out in deep space where things can go wrong. They don't know what's out there because, again, this is the beginning of their mission. They're still new to this idea of being out in deep space where there's no one around you sometimes. And that's where the excitement, I think, can really come from this film, is them getting to again, discover their place in the universe as the Federation. As the Federation is now branching out, it's not always going to be sunshine and lollipops. You're going to meet races that don't want to have anything to do with you and your Federation, who are going to give you the big middle finger and blow you out of the sky.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is where this film, I hope, will deliver on the tension and the excitement, is that it's the idea of trying to bring peace to certain races and civilizations, and will they accept it, will they not? And it gets more in the vibe of the original TV series, which is, of course, them out in space, finding new worlds, making that connection. How do they bring Starfleet, forward into these other parts of the universe? Because they're, again, not everybody's going to be warm and fuzzy about you showing up. And I hope that that's sort of what we're going to get with this film.
Right.
So, we'll see what happens. But again, these films are coming out. Both Ghostbusters and Star Trek, I believe, are July. I want to say this. So there's still some time before they come up. But next weekend we'll definitely be talking about X-Men Apocalypse, which I'm very excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
So to those of you watching, again, thank you for taking time to join us today. Let us know in the comments below. Did you get to see either of the films this weekend, The Nice Guys or the Angry Birds movie that we talked about? And if so, what did you think of them? Did you find them as entertaining as we did, especially The Nice Guys? Do make sure when you're discussing, though, to make note if you're going to have a spoiler. Please make sure you put notes that you are going to put a spoiler so that nobody else gets it spoiled for them, so that they can actually enjoy the film, on its own merit. But again, thank you as always for joining us up here in the Man Attic. We definitely appreciate your support. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and share it out there. Let people know what you're watching, and if you enjoy what we're doing, again, let us know in the feedback below. Let us know what films you want us to talk about, because again, one of the things we've talked about doing is not just reviews of current films and news, but also looking at other films that we love from the past as well. We are working on our John Carpenter episode, which will be a lot of fun. We'll unveil that later this summer. But again, as we move forward into the summer, a lot of new films coming out every weekend. Let us know your thoughts. What do you think of these new movies coming out? Are you excited for them? Did you like them? Did you hate them? What do you want to see next? And again, be a part of the conversation, because we would love to hear from you. We'd be glad to have any comments you want to have. We'll read them on the show, talk about them, and do that kind of fun stuff too. So as always, we'd love for you to be a part of the discussion. Don't be afraid to do so. Click in the comments space below. Let us know your thoughts. And again, thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, I'm Kevin Polly.
And I'm Brian Hatcher.
And liking the new hotness, really liking the new mics. Thank you so much, B, for bringing us into even further into the 21st century there. So again, I'm sorry. Yeah, 21st now. 21st, yeah.
Absolutely.
Gosh, it's been that kind of day. Yeah. Anyway, not enough coffee. But thank you for joining us. And again, we'll look forward to seeing you next week as we take a look at the newest film in the X-Men franchise, X-Men Apocalypse. We'll see you then.